Hey everyone, John here for Out of This World Models and Minis, and we are on part 2 and the finale of the SDF-1 build. This one took a little bit longer than I thought I was going to take. I actually did another build in between parts 1 and 2. It was just one of these things where I got halfway done with the model and I just wanted to put it down and forget about it. Yeah, I gotta finish it because it was a favorite of mine when I was growing up. So this scene here, I'm actually putting together a homemade panel line wash using the classic Testors white in the little bottles enamel paint. Just have some lighter fluid in there and mixing in a little bit of Testors white. Yeah, I used to paint miniatures with that paint years and years ago. Wow. But yeah, you just you mix a little bit of each together and you've got something close to a true panel line wash. It's not the best, but it'll get the job done, and I think there's some cleanup that I had to do later on with it. But yep, just using an old crappy brush to mix it in, and you can see a little bit of the white there that I actually started before the scene and it was too thick, so I thinned it down a little bit. Capillary action didn't work as well as I had expected it to, but I eventually got the whole thing done, so I wasn't too worried about it. I just had to do a little bit of cleanup afterwards. And that's where the, yep, if it focuses there, that's pretty much all of it that I get done there, and then I just have to do some cleanup. Now these darker sections here, I just went ahead and painted those black and then dry brushed a color called Lead Belcher. It's one of the Citadel color metallic ranges. Oh, I got some bad seams in there, so it's a good thing the bad ones are on the inside. But yeah, you can see where that needs a lot of cleanup there. And going in here with the sponge, I use the sponge technique to simulate actual panels, because this is it's a 1/4000th scale model. You're not going to see individual panel lines, so I figured by stippling and sponging, it looks like little pocks there, but they're supposed to resemble different panels. And they really show up in the camera, but in real life they're actually pretty subtle. I think it has to do a lot with the light that's above my workbench. And I did the sponge with the couple different colors of blue, and then I went in with a couple different shades of really light gray and some different whites, because I wanted to give this a little bit of weathering. Now this isn't going to be the prize piece in my collection by any means, but it was a fun kit to revisit. And they actually have a larger version of this. It's the movie edition, which, if I'm ambitious enough, I might go ahead and pick up one of these days. And there's a little bit of cleanup that I end up doing with the, yep, right there on the white. Even though I gave this multiple matte coats, I did get a lot of paint rubbing off. But very rarely did I put it, I don't even know if I put any gloves on for this the second half of the build. Some of those seam lines on the sides, I didn't worry about because they're going to be covered up by the arms and the ships. And yep, a little messy there, but I cleaned some of that stuff up later. And like I said, from a distance, it looks really nice. As you get up closer, you can see that the speckling and the sponge technique on there. And I did a little bit of weathering with some panel line wash just to bring out those lines. Now this one had old decals, and yeah, look at that. That is messy. That decal just fell apart as I was putting it on there. Also this one right here. Focus. There we go. Yep. Both of those I can clean up with paint. I'm not too worried about those, but the rest of the decals, I ended up using a it's a liquid decal restorer. And yeah, I ended up brushing on that liquid decal restorer on these old decals. It didn't work. I'm going to tell you right now, it's just, you're going to see some ugly pictures here coming up. The straight lines, thankfully it was all just straight lines after this, so even though I'm not the biggest fan of masking things, especially like the lines on starships and all that, it turned out fine. Now these little caps for the engines, first thing I'm going to end up doing here is painting the insides black, and then I'm going to airbrush like a pulsing type effect over each one of them right there. And then these shoulder sponsons here, that's where I have to tape those off, because I do try using one of the decals, and actually I tried using two different decals and they've both failed miserably. And just using some Army Painter matte black for the engine grates there. There's one failed decal. And yes, decals do get worse with age. So I think if I have any other decals on an older kit, I might just scan them and take off the background with Photoshop and print them on some decal paper. But yep, that one failed, so I just put on some of the Tamiya masking tape, stipple on a little bit of Mephiston red. Yeah, it's not too bad. There's a little bit of cleanup that I ended up doing, but that was the first one I did. And there's the second one. This one doesn't come out too bad either, so it's the shiny lines, that's gloss. It's a gloss sealer, because if I were to use the decals and they worked correctly, you always want to use decals over gloss finish. That way when you put your matte coat on after they dry, you don't have that silvering that usually gets left behind. And I tried not to cover up my work with the airbrush, but just a little bit of pale blue in there. And I switch over to some yellow for the inside. And just carefully put that little pulse effect in there. And clean that up a little bit. Yeah, so not as dynamic as I was thinking it was going to be, but it worked out. And just removing the tape. Not too bad, a little bit of cleanup work needed, but I take care of that. You can see where some of the paint was taken off on the one side. I actually took off the guns to do that, because they got in the way of the decals. And if they're going to get in the way of the decals, they're going to get in the way of the paint. So, and this one comes out a lot nicer. Still get a little bit of cleanup on there. Ooh, beauty shot. I did the yellow stripes at the base of the engines as well. Right there. The camera's making it look really bright too. Ooh, I got some cleanup I had to do there from the rubbing, like I was talking about earlier. And there's the SDF-1. Still need a little bit of detail painting on there, but I wanted to get it on the base. If I can hold the camera right. And I end up making a little placard that says SDF-1 for that base, which I think you'll see at the end. Yeah, so all in all, it was a fun kit to revisit. And those white lines there, those do not come out very well on the camera. But I did some little bit of really light brown shading on there too, because I didn't want it like completely white. So it might not be the best looking model in my collection, but you know what? I did it and I got it. So I always wanted to get another version of this kit because the one I had from years ago just did not last. And there's the detail work too. Didn't come out too bad for a guy with one bad eye. And some future Robotech builds here. Got the attack mode, and yeah, this one's like 1/8000th scale, so that's crazy. The attack tomahawk, that was always my favorite Destroid. Gotta have a Zentradi ship there in the mix. And Lin Minmay in her kimono surfing dress. I'm going to try and use some real flesh tones instead of cartoonish looking ones. And the Destroid monster. This was always one that I wanted. So we're going to have some fun with those. And here we go with the final reveal.